some of you know I have three little girls, so 11, 9, and 7. So a typical weekend can look like anything. So there's not really any typical as far as depending on what the girls got going on. So right now, our Fridays are usually kind of like our family day. So Julie and I will take Fridays and spend a little time going for coffee together. We'll walk the dog. We kind of spend Fridays just as our time together, and then pick up the girls from school. And then after school is like usually we do pizza. So whether that's I'm making pizza or we're doing something easy and spending time as a family, maybe we'll play a game or I'll watch a movie, and it's usually pretty laid back on Friday nights. It's really what most young families are doing is like we're busy hanging out with our kids and seeing people and that kind of thing. So some of the things that is when I think about building family and we think about the things that matter to us as a family, sometimes I feel like we're a lot. Like, I think about, have high expectations of the things that who we want to be as a family and what do we want to cultivate. And I think we really want to be intentional on living our values as a family. And so I could give you 4 or 5 values that we care about. I mean, once a year, Julie and I go away for 2 to 3 days to kind of talk through our marriage values, our family values, our parenting values, and our life values. And we spend time evaluating how we're doing on those things and setting goals for the next year. And it's always a great time away together to be able to revisit, are we actually living our values, or is life just happening to us? I was checking in on one of our people a month or so ago, and she said to me, "Hey, I'm not sure how I feel about this because I'm worried about those girls." And I love it. I'm so grateful that we are thinking about the impact of ministry and family. And I think for us, one of the things that's interesting and I think a little bit challenging is they bleed. And you actually don't always know where one starts and where one ends. I think because when you talk about ministry, so many values of paid ministry come up on what it just means to be a follower of Christ, of what it means to love Jesus. And so where does paid ministry stop, and where does just being a follower of Christ pick up? And how do you build boundaries and take time and have space for your family? And I think we have figured out to a certain degree what it looks like to protect certain times for the girls. And so how do you make sure that you show up at sports games and practices and being present in their lives? I mean, this morning, how do I show up? I got 10 extra minutes. How do I show up? Cody's got a track and field day, and she asked, "Can you set up a shade tent for me?" So, can I show up 15 minutes late to work to go shed up? Yeah, I can do that because I know on the other end we're going to end up having somebody over in the night, and some of that is this and some of that's that, and how that all blends. And Julie and I do that, when I say Friday mornings we go for coffee, that's the stuff we're talking about, where do we need alignment, how are we doing here? And so it's not, we don't get too far off course before we can correct. And so I think that's really helpful. One of the things that I feel overwhelmed about this job about is, I go to the mall and I'm out with the girls, and you got people who are saying hi just because you're on stage a little bit more, and they know who you are. You have no idea who they are, and you're meeting new people all the time, and you just can I remember these names because I want these people to know that they matter. And I think that's something that it matters to me, and you want to fight for. You want to fight for it because it tells people right away that they matter and that they belong, and that that you're glad they're here. And so I think that's been a big lesson, and I don't know how to do that in a big church. And I would say, even to start, be so gracious with me. I want to do it well, and yet there are times where you drop the ball and you call somebody a name and I'm an idiot, I got that wrong. But it just really matters, and I think that's a lesson that I learned lots from youth ministry. I think one of the things about ministry is you are always trying to figure out, what is my job to prepare for the task? And what's the job of the Spirit in the moment? And you're trying to marry those two ideas when you come to preaching, when you come to leading, when you come to lots of things. And I think one of the the things that I often am thinking about is I want to do everything I can ahead of time when I know something's coming to be prepared. So taking time to listen to the Lord in the process. Lord, what do you want to say? What do you want to do here? How do you want me to interact here? Holy Spirit, how did you do it? So the Holy Spirit's informing the preparation process. I think that's part of it, but making sure you're prepared. And then in the moment, as you're coming to anything, of holding your hands open and saying, hey, Lord, this is what I have planned, but is there anything else that you're wanting to do today? So often I will come to a teaching time, or I'll come to a pastoral time, and I am half prepared for what I'm talking about, but I'm half asking, Lord, what do you want to do here? So it's this tension of, we don't want to be so structured that there is no room for the Spirit of God to work, but we don't want to be so loosey-goosey that we haven't actually done the work ahead to say, Lord, would you prepare me for what you have? And so I think the Lord honors the work ahead, but he also honors the hands that are held open while you're actually walking through the event, and trusting that as we do that he's going to lead us in what we do. So I think what would get me the most amped and excited is some of the microcosms that we see, but on a bigger scale. So this last week, we had 2 guys bring someone to church who they have been praying for, and they have been pursuing, and who needs Jesus. And he came, and he gave his life to Christ, and they were elated. As soon as I got to church, they saw me as like, he's here. Like, you won't believe it. He is here. You won't believe what God has done this last week in his life. And so I think in a microcosm, it isn't how many people can Jordan Cavanaugh lead to Christ through his preaching? How many people, how big can this thing get? It is the microcosm of that multiplication of people are catching fire of the good news of Christ, and it is impacting their neighbors, friends, and family. And there are stories, and we aren't having to just like try to sit down as a group at the end of the year when it comes to like thinking about the last year and go, oh, do you have anything? Like, it's like, boy, it's like, we just have so much that is going on because our people are living the gospel in the community. And so I think that branches out to some of the creativity stuff of like, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? Like, what does that mean? We got to build. Does that mean we got a church plant? Does that mean, like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, but I think I know what it looks. I think you know what it looks like. It looks like people coming alive and being so fired up about what's going on in their friends, neighbors, and people's lives, and seeing answered prayer that they just want more. And you know what that vibrant community is like when you step into a room and people are so grateful that they're here. They're so grateful for the gospel. They can't wait. And I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with CrossRoads is because we care about red deer in Central Alberta and the world. The mandate of the church is missional, and a missional mandate means we have to be paying attention to what's happening in our community. And I think CrossRoads has consistently said, this is what matters to us. This is what success looks like. And I think that gets me fired up because it says to me too that we can dream. Like, we have the opportunity to dream. I think we can dream big dreams for God of what he could do in our city. Of like, if we're actually saying that Red Deer is the 6th or 7th least church city in all of Canada per capita, if that's actually what the statistics are, there are so many things and so many opportunities for us to impact our community for the gospel. And I was saying to the church last night in preaching, I said, hey, the goal of this is not, it's not just to make converts. The goal is not to have the biggest church and have a massive crowd. The goal is we believe that the gospel brings about flourishing for people, that it actually has the power to transform lives. And so I think that what I get excited about is like our vision believes that. So let's go do it.